It's Monday night, and you know what that means. Jersey First TV proudly brings to you the latest edition of Real Talk, and I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, Top 100 Latino, via the Latino Spirit online magazine for 2020, 2021, and now in 2022, and certainly the sworn enemy of all the local social justice clowns, toxic progressives, climate hysterics, the pronoun patrol, and all the woke fools throughout the state of New Jersey. Yes, it's me, Fernando Uribe. Hoping you all had a wonderful weekend, folks. Thank you for joining us here on the 15th of August, and certainly for tuning in from wherever and however you may be doing so on Facebook Live via StreamYard, and certainly on the Jersey First YouTube page. Make sure, again, click on the share button, because sharing is caring. Add some comments there, some questions if you want to ask it, as well ask during the live broadcast right now. And of course, make sure you do share the episode as we are live here on all of your social media applications. Again, from any PC, Mac, laptop, smartphone, tablet, wherever, sharing is caring here on the show. And certainly, ladies and gentlemen, always make sure you check out Jersey First at their website, www.jerseyfirst.org. That's jersey1st.org. The number one, don't forget, Jersey ST. Jersey1st.org, and make sure you like Jersey First TV on Facebook and follow them on both Instagram and Twitter. Check out my own Twitter and Instagram. It's the same handle, at the Fernando Zone, and make sure you like Real Talk with Fernando Uribe on Facebook as well. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you had a wonderful weekend. August is just chugging along here. The summer is almost over. It was great to see the NFL back last weekend, right? So for me, obviously, I was very ecstatic about seeing my Dallas Cowboys on television. And, of course, no injuries, which is the most important thing as we quickly approach the 2022 campaign. I'm hoping the reigning and defending NFC Eastern Division champions can have a better year than last year. We hope so. I'm always, hey, maybe I'm delirious, maybe I'm delusional, but you can't say I'm not loyal to Cowboys Nation. So, again, let me toast to them. And we'll see what the 2022 campaign brings us here. And, folks, certainly one of the reasons that Real Talk with Fernando Uribe continues to do so exceptionally well every week with traffic, not just, a few dozen views, a few hundred views. We're talking about thousands of views every single week, is because of two things. Number one is because of you, my loyal viewing audience, who are so devoted, and a very intelligent audience, to say the very least. So I'm deeply indebted and grateful to all of you for making this a part of your Monday night viewing. But secondly, and most important, it's the exclusive guest that I bring you every single week here on the show that no other journalist in the state of New Jersey brings you. And of course, speaking of journalism, folks, you do want to stay tuned for the end of the show, as I will announce this week's winner of the worst journalist in the state of New Jersey. Yes, as a matter of fact, it's not necessarily somebody from Insider NJ, which tends to be the regular here on the show. It'll be someone else, but don't worry, folks. Insider NJ is not immune from my scorn. I have plenty to say about them later in the program. But first, joining me here live exclusively on Real Talk via Jersey First TV, he is a distinguished owner of Gun for Hire, one of the best gun range and gun shops anywhere in the New Jersey tri-state area. He is also an NRA board member, a fellow patriot, and a fellow conservative. My good friend, the glorious Anthony Colandro, here tonight on Real Talk. Anthony, how are you, sir?
I'm phenomenal. I'm always honored to be on your show, Fernando. I'm always impressed of what you do out there for journalism in New Jersey and getting our side of the story out. And I'm also impressed about all the philanthropic and charitable work that you do. I don't know if a lot of people on your show know about that, but it's just great to have somebody like you. I feel like we're brothers from another mother, or maybe the same mother, because I have that same giving, charitable heart, supporting causes and paying it forward, which I believe I owe a lot of my success to. But honestly, I really want to thank you, because I don't do many interviews with people, because most of it turned out to be, hit pieces, because there's a narrative they follow. But with you, I know it's going to be straight up.
I appreciate that. And thanks for the kind words, Anthony. Again, and we'll talk about, as the fall comes around, my yearly campaign for breast cancer for the American Cancer Society and making strides against breast cancer. Gun for Hire is such a generous donor and sponsor every year since 2016. And again, I'm looking forward to Gun for Hire being that same thing this year, which we'll talk about later in the fall as we approach Breast Cancer Awareness Month. But Anthony, let's get to it here. And certainly, again, folks, if you've not had a chance to visit Gun for Hire, it is an amazing facility in Woodland Park, near every major accessible highway. It's right off of Route 3, but near the Parkway, near the Turnpike, near Route 21, right off the Turnpike. It's so accessible, affordable, and so family friendly. Check out their website, gunforhire.com, whether it's about leagues, pricing, ranges, and more importantly, getting you educated about your Second Amendment right, which thankfully the Supreme Court was able to uphold in a decision, which we'll talk about a little bit later, Anthony. But quite frankly, your facility does a wonderful job in not just empowering law enforcement personnel that go there for their regular practice and shooting that they have to certify, but regular New Jerseyans or New Yorkers that want to go there, whether it's a birthday party, a bachelorette party, a bachelor party, bar mitzvah. I've seen it all on the social media. But Gun for Hire, quite frankly, I would argue is the best gun range in the tri-state area because of its professionalism, but more so its accessibility. Tell us a little bit about what was that epiphany for you to open Gun for Hire, now going on 30 years?
September will be 30 years, God bless. But
that's amazing.
Yes, when I started in the 80s and 90s shooting, ranges tended to be testosterone-driven, mostly white males for the most part, like a boys' club. And I always hated that. And I felt there was such an underserved market by not going after the females and the families. So when I had the vision of starting a range and building it, I focused on the females and the families, not on the males. I figured the men were going to come anyway by default. So my bathrooms are spotless. My staff is diverse. We lead in 5-star reviews across the nation for any gun range in the entire United States. I mean, after the Boy Scouts of America, my establishment is the largest purchaser of NRA training materials in the entire United States. So built my range and the whole philosophy on training and education, which is so important in our business. And that makes me really proud that so many people come through my school to learn how to properly handle firearms, as opposed to what our governor says, how we're all evil out there, like the criminals. Well, everything's upside down now. We're the criminals and the criminals are not the criminals. So dystopian. I get it.
Absolutely. You said it perfectly. And we'll get to the governor, sorry, in a moment. Yes. In terms of, him not being a fan of the Second Amendment, or quite frankly, making it even more difficult for law-abiding citizens to protect themselves. I mean, it's funny when elected officials, celebrities, whoever, people of prominence and power can have 24/7 security around them. But if I want to protect my home and my family, I have to jump through hoops. It seems like it's as difficult as the Mets winning a World Series. It's like, why is it this difficult for a law-abiding citizen to be able to purchase a firearm or even to get certified or have an ID available to them via Trenton? But we'll get to that in a minute. But when we look at the website, it's so professionally designed, but also too, it's about, as you said, training. And listen, I'm a guy, I grew up playing first-person shooter video games. We all think we're good with a firearm. We all think we're good at shooting until life hits us in the face, as they say, F around and find out, as they say. So, but that's the thing though, like your range really makes it comfortable, even for someone that's, let's say, very apprehensive to firearms, someone who's very timid or nervous, and rightfully so. Again, this is a very high sort of octane environment. It's a very, not polarizing, but it's a very emotional environment. You're shooting a firearm. What you have in your hands can take a life, if not more. But again, it's about the importance of stressing responsible gun ownership, which is what you do, again, not just as the owner of Gun for Hire, but as an NRA board member, which we'll get to that a little bit later. But it's really mind-boggling to me when people in Trenton, the legislature, or a lot of these left-wing woke activists want to talk about, we need to make it more difficult to purchase a firearm in Jersey to keep New Jersey safe. I don't know about you, but again, it's interesting where they want to cite, the reason New Jersey doesn't have mass shootings or schools aren't getting shot up is because we don't live in states like Florida and Texas or wherever, where gun laws are loose. That's not the case. That's a really misleading narrative. And I really want you to sort of delve into that because, quite frankly, it's something that the liberal media nationally and here in New Jersey just act upon so irresponsibly.
It's the narrative they follow. And you talked about Emperor Murphy. He goes up on the podium and says, no one should have a gun to defend themselves, as he's surrounded by men and women with guns defending him, because obviously his life is more important than ours, right? So when our legislature, which are ignorant to guns, the majority of them, when they pass these laws, there's absolutely no research behind it. And they always leave off one sentence when they pass these laws. It's always during the act or commission of a crime. In New Jersey, just mere possession, law-abiding citizens, they make us law-abiding criminals all the time, scaring people. It's classic classism, Fernando. They want their guns and their protection, but they don't want us, the unwashed masses, to have their guns. And they follow that same narrative all the time. Now the thing is, now that New Jersey has concealed carry, it's going to be the Wild West. But 43 other states have had carry forever. 26 states have constitutional carry where you don't even need a permit to carry a gun. And believe me, if there were shootouts in mall parking lots, the media would be broadcasting it every 30 seconds on the national media. You don't hear about it because it's non-existent. Okay? An armed society is a polite society. In an upside down world we live in now, we need something to counteract. You talked about F around and find out. We need a couple of these bad guys to step and try to mug somebody or carjacking and get shot in the face. And maybe the criminals will think twice. Because let's face it, our prosecutors don't prosecute. Our judges don't judge properly. We don't incarcerate properly. It's a revolving door catch and release system. There's no one going to protect you but yourself today. So I'm not a fear monger by any means, but anybody out there who doesn't believe it, go and look at the crime stats, especially in the blue states. Look at the crime stats. This is done on purpose. This is a breakdown of our society, a moral degradation and a degradation on holding criminals accountable. And we, the people, the third tier, the law-abiding taxpayers, we pay for it every single day.
Anthony, you're absolutely. Folks, if you're just joining us live right now, it is 6:12 here on the East Coast, on Facebook Live via streamer, and also on the Jersey Verse YouTube page. My guest this week is the distinguished owner of Gun for Hire in Woodland Park and an NRA board member, the great Anthony Colandro. Join us here on Real Talk. Anthony, you brought up a good point about the idea that, other states, again, when you talk about concealed carry, and again, the Supreme Court making it very clear about law-abiding citizens being able to exercise their constitutional rights. We saw in New York, Governor Hochul, who's in a fight for her life for re-election, right? I mean, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. She had the clown that preceded her, Andrew Cuomo, which made it just as difficult for law-abiding New Yorkers to be able to purchase a firearm. Well, she didn't care about the Supreme Court. She was like, you know what? I'm going to double down, and I'm going to make it even more difficult for law-abiding New Yorkers to purchase a firearm. And here's a news flash where, the boroughs are a disaster. We have these atrocious prosecutors with this awful bail reform that happens in the state of New York and in the 5 boroughs of New York City, where criminals are no longer afraid to commit crimes. They know that it'll be a slap on the wrist. Bail reform allows them to be on the street the very next day. The NYPD is neutralized. If anything, I think they're castrated, in my opinion. And it makes it even more difficult, which is why you're seeing a mass exodus from the boroughs into places like New Jersey, Pennsylvania, wherever, because not just New York being expensive, it's the fact that it's not as safe as it used to be, right? Didn't we see during the summer of love, right, the summer of social justice in 2020, when we were glorifying a career criminal, that businesses were being looted, public and private property were being vandalized, police stations, police vans, courthouses were being vandalized, not just in New York City, but around the country. And regular law-abiding citizens were powerless. What could they do to protect themselves? And isn't it funny when we talk about, and I know that we just had a shooting in Texas, and my prayers go out to the family over there in Uvalde at that school district. But isn't it funny when you see a lot of these mass shootings that happen in a lot of blue states where supposedly gun laws are very strict, right? Illinois, California. And here's a correlation I always talk about with my students, not just a journalist, Anthony, I'm talking here as an educator as well on the show, where the war on drugs, and I don't have a dog in the fight because marijuana is legal. I've never smoked it. I don't care to, never will. But we've had the war on drugs for over 40 years, okay? And getting illegal drugs is just as easy as ever. The idea of, let's make gun usage or guns as difficult as possible to purchase or to own, guess what? The war on drugs has failed because drugs are still entering this country illegally and guns are still being trafficked illegally. Regardless of what laws you pass, criminals don't pass laws. Why is that so difficult for someone like Governor Murphy or Governor Hochul or Pretty Boy Newsom in California, or other blue states where they just don't get it.
They're hoplophobic. They have a fear of firearms, and they want to focus on the innate object rather than the criminal itself. If we had lock them up and throw away the key sentencing for a lot of gun crimes, violent gun crimes, you would see crime go down. You would see crime with a gun go down. You'd probably see crime with a sharp bottle or a razor go up, but gun crime would go down. But they constantly focus on that. It's the only industry. They want to sue the manufacturer when the crime is committed by a bad guy using a manufacturer's gun. We don't do that with the car companies. And I'm so tired ad nauseum of using that correlation all the time. But enough already. Let's hold the people responsible who are committing crimes. It's such a small percentage. The New York Post last week, over 450 crimes were committed by the same 10 people in New York over a 3-month period. The same 10 people. If we lock them up and leave them there, there's 450 crimes that weren't committed. If I was a police officer, I wouldn't even want to go through the process of locking someone up, knowing they're going to be released in an hour. We've emasculated our police department, male and female. We've taken their hooks out.
No, we certainly have. And I think what's really alarming is this sort of, you don't need a firearm narrative. And we just don't see it from the governor and certain legislators, right, in Trenton. We see it from either woke activists or journalists. I mean, I go after people like Tom Moran with the Star Ledger, Maxi Pizarro with Insider NJ, and the rest of the clowns there at Insider NJ and others, where, again, we're talking about New Jersey. Yes, it's perhaps next to New York and Connecticut having the strictest gun laws in the country. Well, guess what? It's not stopping people in Trenton from shooting each other. Residents in Patterson, which is a war zone. It's another word that it's a blank hole, which I like to keep it family friendly on the show. But Patterson, South Jersey City, the south side of it, Newark, my God. The mayor of Newark apparently is looked upon as a gubernatorial candidate in 2025. What's he going to run on? What, that they're street sweeping? That the Prudential Center has nice security when the Devils or WWE's in town? Like, I don't get it. Or even in New Brunswick, I have a friend of mine named Charlie Cradaville, and he's very left of me, but he's the guy running for mayor in a town that's been monopolized by blue Democrats for 40 years. Or down in Perth Amboy, down in Trenton, as I said, down in Camden. Why is it that, and this is what drives me crazy about journalists in New Jersey, it's like these are absolute blank holes where residents fear for their lives. Why not use your pen or your Mac or your smartphone for good and say, hey, Trenton, let's empower residents in New Jersey to feel safer, not fear for their lives, Anthony.
It's a vicious circle that we're caught in over and over again. And I feel bad for the average working schmuck in this country today. And I'm one of them. We get up every day and we go to work, and the government is supposed to ensure our safety. And it's the one thing they don't ensure. But they were overtaxed and under or little no representation at all as a third tier, the law-abiding, tax-paying citizens. But yet every day, these single moms, they got to bring their kids to school, and there's shootings in the street. And let's pass new gun legislation. Let's have an arbitrary round count of how many bullets are going to be in the magazine. Let's come up with smart gun technology. We already know who the criminals are, but we're not looking in that direction. We're focusing in this direction. And it just repeats itself over and over again. I do not know where it's going to stop, but I do know that we, the law-abiding citizens, it is our opportunity, the first time ever now in my lifetime, 30 years in a Second Amendment fight, Justice Thomas in the Bruin decision said that the Second Amendment is no longer a second-class right. It is at the same level as the First Amendment now. So all of those anti-gunners out there like Hochul and Murphy, they better wake up, because now it's our turn to win in the courts over and over and over again. They should just shut up and save their money and let us do what we want and follow the Constitution.
You mentioned the court decision. Again, the Supreme Court over the summer ruled on the Second Amendment, and obviously we saw what happened in New York. Anthony, I just get this bad feeling that the governor and the new Attorney General, Plotkin, I think they're going to be short-sighted here, because they're welcoming new litigation and lawsuits that, quite frankly, are going to cost taxpayer money by having to go to court and challenge this and litigate this, where the Supreme Court was very clear about where the Second Amendment stands. As you said, it's not a second-class right anymore. The
Nope.
way it's been construed by the liberal media, right? Not just nationally, but here in New Jersey. But now it's, again, just as important as your First Amendment right. And I'm just nervous that the governor, I know he has presidential aspirations, and we'll get to that really funny story in a moment. But it seems like the governor and Attorney General Plotkin are welcoming litigation and lawsuits where the Supreme Court has ruled. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't think the New Jersey Supreme Court can overrule the United States Supreme Court, because ultimately that's what it's going to go to, if not eventually go back to Washington and be back on that court docket. It just seems like, listen, take the L. Don't bother suffocating New Jersey residents with more tyrannical gun legislation when we know it doesn't work. Criminals do not follow laws. And again, I don't want to sort of refer to drug addicts and drug users as criminals. It's sort of an apples to oranges comparison. But again, people who want to score drugs, hardcore drugs, Anthony, they're going to find a way to do it. They're going to find a way to obtain those drugs illegally, okay? Just like if you're interested in purchasing a firearm illegally and using it for whatever criminal means, if you're resourceful, you're going to find a way. Why the governor and the legislature, and let me say this too, because I don't want to paint the legislature with a broad brush, because, for example, where I live up here in Hudson County, my mayor is also my legislator, my state senator. He's a pretty blue-collar, pragmatic Democrat, okay? But we can't say the same for other state senators in Trenton and other assemblymen and assemblywomen. They just seem like, well, yes, let's just make it more difficult because we want to prevent shootings. You have prevented shootings. What you're also doing is preventing law-abiding citizens from protecting themselves in areas where, guess what? Everybody lives in Paramus, Anthony. Everybody lives in Parsippany. Everybody lives in, I don't know, for example, Morristown, or Dumont, or Closter, or Short Hills. People live in Jersey City. People live in Lodi. People live in Perth Amboy. Not bad places per se, but guess what? Some bad elements there. You should be able to protect yourself, Anthony. Where am I going wrong here?
They're gonna learn right now. They have Stockholm syndrome, like we had Stockholm syndrome for 30 years. But I had Loretta Weinberg on my podcast many years ago, and she was the Senate president in New Jersey and a senior Senate senator, and she had not president, senior senator, and she was the most anti-gun politician in the state. And I told her that her bill that they were passing was unconstitutional, and she said, "Well, we really don't care. We pass it, and then we let the courts sort it out." Those days are over now, unless
that makes no sense. And
of course you're a lawmaker and you know you're passing an unconstitutional law.
And no offense, good riddance to Loretta Weinberg.
Yes.
I'm glad she retired. Good riddance. Correct. Go play dominoes. Go play the lottery for all I care. But good riddance to Loretta. Sorry.
But they did that because they knew we'd be stuck in the courts for the next 12 years. They'd age us out. All us fighters would be dead. But now, with the Bruen decision and strict scrutiny that the judges have to follow, unless it's an activist judge, most of the judges are going to have to follow the new doctrine. So it's not going to have to go through 20 years of the legal system anymore. It might only go to one court, maybe a second level, like an appellate court, where we're going to win following the Bruen doctrine. So tough crap, everybody out there that's anti-gun. The tables have turned. It's going to be another 30 or 40 years maybe until they flip the other way. And by then I'll be way out of the fight. So I'm not even used to winning yet. I still can't believe New Jersey is issuing carry permits. Hudson County hasn't started yet, by the way.
I know.
Bergen County just started. Morris did. Essex did. Passaic did. I'm seeing people come into my range that got their permits, that qualified through me. And it's a wonderful feeling. I fought for this for 30 years. It's euphoric. I can't believe it.
Again, the fruits of your labor are paying off for thousands of people in the tri-state area that have trusted you and have relied on you for, again, responsible gun ownership and training and everything else that goes along with this privileged right that we have. It's unbelievable.
The education is the big key because people don't know.
Absolutely.
Education.
Absolutely. Folks, it's 6:25 here on the East Coast. You're just joining us live here on Facebook and also on the Jersey First YouTube page and also on StreamYard. My guest this week is the distinguished owner of Gun for Hire in Woodland Park, New Jersey. He's also an NRA board member, the glorious, as I like to refer to him, Anthony Colandro here on Real Talk. Anthony, we'll get back to the Second Amendment in a moment, but let me pick your political brain here a little bit. It's an election year. It's the midterms, and historically, again, being a history professor, I'm someone that really likes to read up on history. And short of a couple of instances that I can recall in 2002 under President George W. Bush, where Republicans at that time held the House and added seats. And in 1934, under President Franklin Roosevelt, Democrats held the House and added seats. Historically, during the first midterm, every sitting president faces losses in the House for different reasons, sometimes even losing the Senate. It's interesting in New Jersey because here where I live in Hudson County, the county is, the district is blue as Windex. The sitting U.S. Representative Albio Ceres has announced his retirement. The son of U.S. Senator Robert Menendez Sr., his son Robert Jr. is now going to fill in that seat, obviously on election day. It seems like I've interviewed Rob a couple months back. Hopefully he's supposed to be on later again this month on the show. But he's a blue-collar Democrat, kind of like his dad to some extent. He's kind of a pragmatist, but north of him, Josh Gottheimer, kind of a Pelosi enabler. So I kind of see that seat kind of staying intact. To the west of him, Bill Pascrell. Again, no, I'm not throwing shade at Billy Premp, but Bill Pascrell's got a really good mechanism there. He's probably going to get reelected in that district. But west of him, south of me, center of me, and south of me, Republicans have a really good chance this November, in less than about 3.5 months, to win not just only the House, but win back seats that they lost in 2018. And I get it, back in 2018, it was easy to run because Democrats had a boogeyman, right? The 45th president. And historically, the House tends to flip because of what happens during midterm elections. Well, here's a news flash. Democrats don't have a boogeyman anymore. Okay, they can't have Sleepy Joe. You can't wake up Sleepy Joe from his nap and bring him to New Jersey to campaign. So people like Josh Gottheimer and Tom Malinowski and Andy Kim and others gotta pull up their pants, be the big boys and big girls, and win elections on their own. You know what? They want to focus on woke nonsense, pronouns, bathrooms, ridiculous nonsense. There's no such thing as inflation. We're not living under inflation, but yet we're passing an Inflation Reduction Act. It seems like Democrats are headed for an absolute disaster. I think Republicans have a real good chance, Anthony, to win back some seats that they lost 4 years ago. Is that fair to say?
I believe the Republicans will probably take the House and the Senate, but
Okay.
just like they did during Trump's first 2 years, they'll squander it. Because they always seem to squander it. We had Paul Ryan blocked everything the first 2 years Trump was in. The only saving grace the Senate to me was Mitch McConnell. They pushed through all the judicial appointees. That's the only usefulness I have for Mitch McConnell there. But I believe that the Republicans will blow the opportunity, even if they have the majority on both sides, even if it's only for 2 short years. It's just what they constantly do. It's what they constantly do.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think both parties are guilty of it. But I think lately Republicans have a real good chance come January. Because first of all, I am looking forward to seeing the words, Speaker Kevin McCarthy there during the State of the Union. And I'm looking forward to that. Not that I'm the biggest Kevin McCarthy fan, but I'm looking forward to seeing him and not Nancy, hit the bottle Nancy. I'm looking forward to seeing her hit the bricks. But it's interesting because Republicans have a really good chance to hold hearings and hold real people accountable, like big tech, that shadow ban people like you and I, that silence people online, that are, hopefully holding people like Anthony Fauci accountable and all the rest of the COVID conspirators, right, that shut this country down for 2 years, ruin businesses, ruin people's lives. I'm hoping Republicans can do that because we saw enough of BS litigation, BS trials, and all these hoaxes, Russia, collusion. Now this January 6th nonsense. I'm hoping Republicans, like you said, don't squander it, but historically they tend to do that.
Yep. They always tend to do that. They don't take a hard enough line, and there doesn't seem to be enough unity with them. The one thing I will say about the socialists, they all walk in lockstep. They don't step out of their party. They protect each other. I mean, look at them. They even protect pedophiles.
That's right. They do. And it's interesting because hopefully if Republicans can win both chambers of Congress, they can make Sleepy Joe's remaining 2 years, hopefully his one and only term, as unpleasant as possible. When it comes to what remains there. And it's interesting, though, Anthony, because here in New Jersey, again, as I mentioned, west of me, Central Jersey and South Jersey, Republicans have a really good chance to hammer home the reality that what has this president done? He should have been drilling domestic. He should have been drilling domestically. He should have been having gas prices as low as before January 6th, 2021, as I remember January 6th. Not the way people on the left like to remember January 6th. But at the same time, too, supply chain issues, everything with COVID, how draconian COVID measures were by this administration, right? The idea that we're seeing a president cognitively declining before our eyes, a vice president who is she is the epitome of a laughing hyena at a clown show. And it's awful. Like, how people on the left can continue to celebrate this man and woman is mind-boggling to me. And what's more irresponsible is the media nationally and here in New Jersey, who seem to not really focus on what they're doing wrong, but the occasional things they do right. I think it's absolutely disgusting.
But if you think we have it bad now, if the Republicans don't take the House, maybe the Senate, if we have Joe Biden 2 years as a lame duck president with whoever's really running the country behind him, they're going to push through every social communist initiative under Joe Biden's name like they've been doing for the past year and a half. This country will be completely done. We will be Venezuela 2.0 if Biden as a lame duck president for his last two years with the House and the Senate with the Democrats. I'm telling you right now, everything will be passed through. We'll have to have a think speech book like right out of 1984.
Correct. Somewhere George Orwell is rolling around in his grave saying, hey, I just wrote this book never thinking this would happen, but it's happened before our eyes.
1984, now available in nonfiction.
That's right. That's right. You're absolutely correct. Go to Barnes & Noble's, folks. It's not going to be in nonfiction anymore. It's usually in fiction. It's not going to be there anymore for sure. Anthony, when we talk about New Jersey, I mean, here's a study that drove me crazy. Wallet Hub, and there's some local websites like by me, Hoboken Girl, which is a joke of a website, but they were citing a study by Wallet Hub talking about New Jersey is the second best state to live in this country. I'm going to read you some numbers here because I just said to myself, this is madness. Where again, I'm not a big fan of Wallet Hub by any means. I think that it's not a website I take seriously whatsoever. But here are some criteria about what went into the New Jersey being the second best state to live in. Again, according to the study, and they had 52 indicators as it pertained to safety, affordability, education. And obviously, I'm not going to read the whole list here. But when I looked at this, I said, first of all, affordability, New Jersey has the highest property tax in the country. And I'm looking right here at an average of $9,100. That is higher than anywhere else in the continental United States. And again, that's just the average. You go up and down the state. You go to towns like Short Hills and Summit, New Jersey. We're talking about $20,000, if not more, in property tax. You go to Bergen County, northern Bergen County, Dumont, Alpine, Closter. We're talking about $15,000, $16,000, $17,000 in change. Here, where I live in Hudson County, I get it. I'm a block from the light rail. I'm 2 blocks from looking at Manhattan. I get it. I'm right across New York City. It's about $9,000 and change. I understand that. But New Jersey being affordable, New Jersey ranking, according to the study, safety was one of the biggest indicators as to why New Jersey is such a great state to live in. According to who? Stevie Wonder? Like, who did they interview? Matt Murdock from the MCU? And like, who did they interview? Again, when these indicators did they go to Parsippany? Did they go to, Cape May? Did they go to Wildwood? I don't have enough fingers and toes to name really bad areas of New Jersey. So when I look at these studies, Wallet Hub, I trust Wallet Hub as much as I trust drinking water at a water fountain in Mexico.
They every year I read the survey by National Van Lines of people moving out of the states, and New Jersey's second or third every year. California, New York, and New Jersey. And since COVID hit, the only reason why New Jersey fell to third last year was because a lot of people moved out of New York into New Jersey because New York was even more oppressive than New Jersey. Yeah. But New Jersey, you could get people move out. No one wants to be here anymore. Anybody who has the means gets out. My CPA told me a long time ago, there's 2 things you can't do in New Jersey. You can't die or retire in New Jersey. You can't afford to stay here in the house you grew up in or the house you got married in. And then when you leave, you got to pay an exit tax. Thank you, Governor Christie. And of course, our inheritance taxes are some of the worst in the state. And again, the crime is through the roof. It's unsafe. It's dirty. We have no good mass transit in this state. Let's face it. It's horrible. It is literally horrific. If it wasn't for the bagels and pizza, and gun for hire, and who would want to stay here?
And it's interesting you bring up mass transit because where I live in Hudson County, I mean, again, we have a great light rail system. I can get to Hoboken in 7 minutes. I can be into Manhattan in less than 10 minutes. I get all that. That's great. But you go a little bit south of me and west of me, Anthony, it's not great mass transit. We're seeing delays. And for all the money the legislature keeps pumping into New Jersey Transit, like, where is this money going? I'll give you an example.
Trickle down.
I'm a big NFL fan. I love going to MetLife Stadium to watch my Cowboys against the New York Football Giants. And I like to go to a Jets game because my dad's a Jet fan. But I have to drive there. Is there a train station that takes you to MetLife? Absolutely. But it is so laborious to get there. I have to take a light rail to go to Hoboken. And then from Hoboken, I have to take a train that takes me to Secaucus. And then from Secaucus to East Rutherford. It is such a laborious thing to do something like go watch a concert or a ball game or even go to the American Dream Mall, right? That great taxpayer delight, right? Where it still costs me $5 to park, which is, don't even get me started on that. But west and south of me, again, it's not the most accessible, and it's also more spaced out. Again, I live in the most densely populated county, not just the state, nationally, okay? And mass transit's great here. I can get around. I have a car because I love driving a car, but I can get around if I don't have to use a car. That's not the case in Morris County, Burlington, Cape May, Middlesex County, Ocean County. It just seems like for what taxpayer put into New Jersey Transit, the ROI, again, part of my day job is grading. I would argue that I would give New Jersey Transit an F.
Look at our highways with the potholes in our streets and all the dirt and debris strewn around. It's like the squeaky door syndrome. It happens over time, so we kind of don't notice it. But I look at it with a fresh eye. I own an SUV because I don't want to drive a car because I bent rims the last time I had a car, which cost thousands of dollars. But there's garbage and everything. It's like we're like a third world country. Meanwhile, you go to a state like Florida, even Delaware, and you're like, wow, look how clean the streets are here. There's no debris in the median and the sides of the road and overgrown, shrubs and everything. It's just horrible. We pay so much taxes. You think there would be pride of ownership in our state, but no, we're worrying about all of this social justice stuff. That's where our focus is today. And we can't run a country by tantrum. You cannot run a country by tantrum. Somebody has to put their big pants on and make decisions, and people have to live by those decisions.
You're right, Anthony. And it seems like the legislature, it seems to be so afraid of, again, as I talk about being the sworn enemy of the social justice clowns, all the woke fools, the pronoun patrol, and everybody of the alphabet army. It just seems like, listen, I'm a tolerant person, but the idea that you want to govern or you want to get your way by tantrum and then force government, again, whether it's coddling illegals like we see here in New Jersey, right? The legislature acquiesces to all these garbage nonprofit organizations that coddle illegals. Mind you, folks, I'm the son of immigrants. My parents came here legally. They did it the right way. But again, and I get not everyone has that opportunity, but here in New Jersey, we reward bad behavior in so many ways. And again, illegal immigration is just another example of it. We also, too, again, here, we don't spend appropriately. Again, here's a number that'll drive you crazy. In 2004, and irrespective of what you think of him personally, Governor Jim McGreevey introduced a budget at the time to the legislature of $21 billion. That's in 2004. Okay, irrespective of what we think about Jim McGreevey. I think he's a nice guy to me. He's been on the show. I like him personally. I'm not a fan of him, as a governor, but again, or how he governed, but he's a good guy. Let's fast forward to this past summer, right before June 30th. Again, folks, in New Jersey, under state law, the budget has to be signed and ratified by the legislature and signed into law by Governor Murphy by 11:59 p.m. on June 30th. Otherwise, at 12:01 a.m. on July 1st, the state shuts down. So obviously, this is why there's such an urgency. What we saw was the governor and the Secretary of the Treasury insult my intelligence and your intelligence by saying, well, you know what? It's so great that we're operating with a surplus. No, we don't have a surplus in New Jersey because of anything the legislature did or the governor did. It's because of borrowing. It's because of kicking the can down the road. and federal money you got from. It's not like somehow Trenton said, "Oh, let's cut this department or let's slash spending." No, that's a surplus. I mean, do I feel like I have to teach economics 101 in this program too, Anthony?
It's incredible, but see, they have the media behind them, so
Yeah.
we're totally outnumbered. And the reason people constantly vote blue is we're reaching a tipping point in this country where it's free stuff over freedom. The more government handouts we give, the more people are going to vote to keep those handouts. That's why we coddle illegals, because illegals, they want the illegals that come in that way, not like my grandparents or your parents that came in and worked 3 jobs 7 days a week to make ends meet and make a better life for the family. These people, they want, that's why they don't want Cubans in this country, but they want everybody that comes in from the southern border, because they want people that are going to go right on the rolls and go onto the free stuff roll, and they'll all vote in lockstep. That's what it's all about here, taking over the country.
Absolutely. Again, I'm biased because I'm a third Cuban, so the concept of a strong work ethic is there from my grandmother, my mother, my aunt. Again, no shade on my dad, who's Colombian. Strong work ethic too there. Also from my grandfather from Spain. So it's interesting, again, how we just enable bad behavior constantly. Anthony, before I let you go, obviously, let's get back to Governor Murphy for a minute. It seems like the governor's letting his hair grow out. He's wearing more jackets. He's wearing more collared button-down shirts. He's making the rounds in New Jersey. Certainly there's a new PAC was formed, as you've seen the commercials on major, sort of nightly news and network television. It seems like there's whispers that the governor feels that because he's won 2 terms, it's almost like the Chris Christie syndrome, where, hey, he might have higher aspirations. And again, for everybody at home, if you're not aware, Woodrow Wilson is the first and only New Jerseyan to ever win the presidency, a former professor. So again, I'm a little partial to Woodrow Wilson being an educator, but he's the only New Jerseyan thus far, and I would argue that's ever going to be elected president. It's interesting to me, coming in 2024, there's a lot of speculation where Dems supposedly are not a fan of Joe Biden. They may not want him to run for another term. But what's the alternative? Kamala Harris? That's Kamala Harris every single night when you put a microphone in front of her. Gavin Newsom, please. Gavin Newsom has run California into the ground. Cory Booker, stop it, please. It seems like the bench for the Democrats at a national level is really, really weak. And maybe the governor sees the tea leaves and saying, well, this is really atrocious. I can tell you, Anthony, conclusively, from people I talk to on the ground, operatives that don't want to be named, but trust me and talk to me in comments, Fernando, Governor Murphy is out of his mind if he thinks that, forget about 24, because we all know Sleepy Joe is going to run for another term. Somebody will wake him up out of his nap and say, oh, by the way, Joe, yeah, we're president again. So we'll see what happens, whether it's the 45th president or my guy, Ron DeSantis, a governor who really got COVID right, who governs well and gets it, in the sense of being that guy to stick it to the left, the woke crowd, all those other idiots. It just seems like Governor Murphy might have to settle for 2028. And by then, he'll be out of office in 2025. It'll be 3 years. He won't be in the national spotlight. I don't understand why this insistence by Governor Murphy to, again, either start this PAC or kind of, send some feelers out. Let's see how people feel about me running for president. I'm telling you right now, and these are Democrat operatives telling me this, the governor doesn't stand a chance, but you got to put up the good face. You got to smile next to him. You got to go to events, shake his hand, kiss the ring, as they say. But we all know the governor does not have a chance.
He lives in his bubble, right? He was already a Goldman Sachs millionaire. I can tell you now, everybody that's watching this can timestamp this and save this. He will finish lower in the numbers than Mayor de Blasio did when he ran for president. He will not finish at all. People detest people like him, the way he comes across, this hubris, this rich guy. No one can relate to him. He's far from Donald Trump when it comes to relating to the blue collar people. Murphy has nothing to stand on as the governor, and wherever he was, what was it, Ireland or Germany, where he was an ambassador under Obama? Germany. Yeah, he will not go anywhere. So he should just finish his governorship here and then go back to Massachusetts.
When we talk about his chances, we also talk about the record. And conveniently today, the governor rolled back some executive orders about mandating testing for school districts, for state workers. I think certain essential personnel, that's not going to happen. But what I would argue is that's not something to stand on. We all know that governors like Murphy, Cuomo, Lamont, and others, the guy from the clown from Pennsylvania, I mean, they got it wrong.
They crippled us.
Yeah, Governors DeSantis from the great state of Florida, Governor Abbott from, again, the great freedom-loving state of Texas, got it right. And it's just mind-boggling to me where now conveniently we're seeing this rollback. Isn't COVID still a problem? Or are we is this just now for political expediency, Anthony?
Yeah, it's all politics. They crippled us for 2 years, and they didn't care. They allowed the big businesses, big tech, pharmaceutical companies to continue to make money. All their union donors made money. But we, the people, the small guys, they literally crippled us. And people don't forget. They think we have short memories. He can get rid of whatever he wants when it comes to union and teachers and stuff. But the regular blue-collar people are not going to forget.
Anthony, obviously, we talked a little bit about 24. We'll see who Republicans want to throw out there. I'm sure that the usual suspects. I know Governor Christie is delusional. He wants to try to run in the primary. I know Rafael Cruz, senator from Texas. I call him Rafael. That's what's on his birth certificate. Like, that's his birth name. It's not Ted. It's Rafael, for God's sakes. But I'm sure Marco Rubio, hopefully he survives re-election this year in Florida. I'm sure he'll throw his name out there. Maybe Nikki Haley, a two-term governor out of South Carolina. Maybe Condi Rice, who knows? But it seems that here in New Jersey for 25, a lot of names are being floated out for the gubernatorial primary. We know Jack Ciarelli is getting a head start. I was the only journalist, Anthony, last year. Everyone laughed at me, and I have a lot of free dinners still coming my way this year that I'm going to collect on. I said, hey, I hope Jack wins. But realistically, I think because, A, Democrats outnumber registered Republicans by more than 1.5 million. The county machines, not the apparatuses, but the parties themselves do a really good job of mobilizing. And I said, you know what? Because of these variables, the governor is probably going to squeak out a 3 or 4 point win. Everyone laughed at me. Everyone said, Fernando, you're crazy. The governor's immensely popular. I said, no. He is immensely unpopular in many sectors of the state. Maybe in the blue urban areas, people fell in love with Governor Murphy. But I said, he's going to sweat it out. And he did. He had to wait about 48, 72 hours to barely beat Jack Ciarelli by 3 points. Again, I think that should be a wake-up call to the governor that, it's not like Chris Christie in 2013. He won re-election by a landslide. And again, that got him delusional to think he could run for president. I would hope the governor maybe takes a step back and his operatives say, no, this is probably not a good look. But for 25, we're hearing names like Ross Baraka out of Newark, which Newark is a dump. I don't know what he's going to run on. I hope Mikey Sherrill is out of a job in about 12 weeks. But it seems like she maybe might get reelected. Maybe. I hope she doesn't. Hope she's out of a job too. But that's another person whose name I'm hearing being floated around. Even someone like Sean Spiller, the president of the NJEA, arguably the worst union in the state, is also a big name on the Democratic side. Anybody that stands out for you on the Republican side?
Bramnick.
Okay.
Would be one for me. Obviously, no one else in New Jersey on the Republican side. They're not even on the radar. I like Michael Testa. I think he's down to earth, and I think he could be trusted. But I've heard Bramnick's name come up many times in my circles. So, and of course, Jack is probably going to run again, and hopefully he thinks he'll get the nod. And I met him a few times, and he seems like a nice guy. But yeah, it's hard because this is the age of mediocrity now. Nobody wants someone that's really good at what they do. We have to find someone that fits all the narratives and be just okay. And that's the person that's going to get put forth. It's really a shame.
It really, really is. Folks, keep the comments coming there on Facebook Live. I give shout out to my good friend Katie in the Jersey City Heights. Yes, I actually am a fan of Woodrow Wilson. I was a big fan of the League of Nations. I thought it was one of the few things that I was a fan of when it came to his presidency. I know there's some other things about Woodrow Wilson, but I like the League of Nations historically as a history professor. So shout out to everybody there. Keep the comments coming as well, for sure. Anthony, before I let you go, certainly this is the thing where, we talk about the Second Amendment. You've been an advocate for 30 years. Where do you see this going as it pertains to litigation? Do you see ultimately the governor and Attorney General Platkin maybe just acquiescing, ultimately taking an L and making sure that Second Amendment rights in New Jersey prevail, because that's what the Supreme Court ruled. That's the law of the land. Take the L. For those on the left, deal with it. What would you say?
No, they're going to fight tooth and nail. They're going to fight. It's bred into them 24/7 since inception. They're going to fight it tooth and nail. Maybe after 6 or 7 losses, maybe they'll lay down, but otherwise they're going to keep coming at us. But we're prepared. We have the infrastructure. We have the legal team, the ANJRPC, which is the state NRA association that I'm executive vice president of, and the NRA that I'm a board member of, and all the other 2A groups are unity and activism. We are ready to fight.
And you're leading the fight for sure. Folks, again, real quick here, and I know you're also an NRA board member. I just renewed my membership dues with the NRA. I really urge everyone to do the same. Go to www.nra.org. Very affordable, great membership benefits. Certainly, your gun range, I would argue, is the best in the tri-state area. You've been so for 30 years. You're a guy that has been at the forefront of Second Amendment rights, responsible gun ownership, and a guy that, not just as a conservative, but someone who believes in just the Bill of Rights. And it's interesting because, people laugh when I say this, but my mouse pad is the Bill of Rights here for everybody to read at home. I look at the Bill of Rights every single day. It's something that I cherish very much. Again, looking at the Second Amendment and everything else. Anthony, you've always been a fan of this show. I really appreciate you, again, supporting me, supporting my philanthropy. You've been very kind over the years since 2016, whether it's for breast cancer awareness, Alzheimer's awareness, toy drives I host every year. You're a gentleman, a scholar as well. Great book. Again, real quick here behind you, I know Crime Proof. Tell our audience real quick about your great book.
Crime Proof. Think like a criminal and beat them at their own game. I've sold over 27,000 copies already. It's available Amazon, Kindle, at the gun range, crimeproofbook.com. Check it out.
I have an autographed copy from Anthony, which is cherished there. It's in the bookcase behind me. So I really cherish it. Ladies and gentlemen, again, he's such a great guest here. Anthony, thank you so much for being a fan of Real Talk with Jersey First TV. I know you don't do these interviews too often, so I'm really grateful to your support and really your belief in my abilities as one of the few, commonsensical journalists in the state of New Jersey. I really, really do appreciate your support of the show and of Jersey First TV. We'll talk to you again soon later during the fall season, Anthony. Folks, he is Anthony Colandro, the owner of Gun for Hire. Again, check it out, gunforhire.com. Also a distinguished NRA board member. Join us here tonight on Real Talk via Jersey First TV. Anthony, God bless you, brother. I'll give you the last word.
Thank you all. Be safe out there.
God bless you, brother. Talk to you again soon here on Jersey First TV.
You got it.
Folks, again, great interview there with Anthony Colandro. Again, folks, keep the comments coming. I can't really answer all the comments right now. I'll certainly do that at the end of the broadcast. But certainly, if you're just tuning in right now, it's 6:50 here on the East Coast. Once again, I do want to thank Anthony Colandro, the owner of Gun for Hire in Woodland Park, a tremendous gun range. Again, as a Second Amendment advocate, as an NRA member, as someone who believes in responsible gun ownership. Again, what Anthony does is amazing. And I'm glad he's leading the fight in this state, because I know that the governor and Attorney General Plotkin are going to have their hands full as it pertains to what the Supreme Court decided this summer. It's the law of the land. Folks, take the L, get over it, move on, and let responsible gun owners be able to exercise their Second Amendment rights. And that's exactly what Anthony Colandro does every single week, not just with his radio show, but also with his advocacy on behalf of the NRA and also on behalf of Gun for Hire. Folks, before I let you go, it is that time of the program where I announce the worst journalist of the week here in the state of New Jersey. And yes, there are multiple winners. What a surprise this week. As we all know, there is a plethora of garbage journalists here in the state of New Jersey. But I'm going to mix it up a little bit, because I know that you might be saying, oh, Fernando's getting a little predictable. No, I'm not. So let's start off with my first winner of bad journalism in the state of New Jersey. Yes, it's the Star Ledger, the Star Liar, as I like to call it. And of course, when we talk about bad journalism at the Star Ledger, let me be very fair. I had Paul Mulshine on, a very distinguished columnist from the Star Ledger, a couple of weeks ago. He's the only reason, ladies and gentlemen, that I can read the Star Ledger at NJ.com. It's because of Paul Mulshine. And again, if you haven't had a chance, check out his columns. Also follow him on Twitter when you get at Mulshine. He's a great columnist. He's a guy that makes a lot of sense, but a guy who is a propagandist, a guy who is undoubtedly a reminder as to why the Star Ledger is not worth the paper it's printed on. If you have expensive china, like if you have an expensive vase that your grandma gave you right after she passed, or you have like an antique clock that your grandfather gave you right in his will, yes, go buy the Star Ledger and use it to wrap up expensive silverware or expensive vases or expensive toys or, I don't know, collectibles, because it's not worth the paper it's printed on. Okay. And the guy leading the crusade as to why the Star Ledger is bad journalism, of course it is. You know who it is, folks. Of course, it's Tommy Boy. It's Tommy Moran. And of course, you know, we get it that Tom Moran enjoys living in the People's Republic of Montclair. And we all know that when it comes to Tommy, that the hardest part of his day is probably deciding, should I have almond milk or should I have soy milk with my super duper mega macchiato at Starbucks, right? That's probably the hardest part of his day. But Tommy Moran reminds you of that insufferable, white, woke, liberal, leftist person, clown is a better term. And unfortunately, he has a forum here where some people actually take him seriously. The editors at the Star Ledger, whoever advertises the Star Ledger, somehow take him seriously. Here are some columns that are really, really funny. I did, as I always, you know, Dr. Uribe does his research because it's what I do and what I'm good at. Again, being a premier award-winning journalist, of course. But, you know, we look at, for example, here's a good one. He published this at the end of last month. Joe Biden is an effective president. Look at the facts. My God, Tom. I know marijuana is legal in New Jersey. I don't know how much you consume. I mean, I don't know if you consume more than Jay Lassiter because he consumes, like, it seems like hourly. Joe Biden is an effective president. Look at the facts here. Jesus Christ. He talks here. After this remarkable week, it's time to take a fresh look at President Biden's performance. His approval rating today is 38% on average, and that's just ridiculous. Yes, the deal on climate announced in the Senate Wednesday could still explode, but its chances are quite good now that the elusive Joe Manchin is on board. So let's assume for a moment that it passes, and let's count the successes during Biden's first 2 years in office. This is really funny. The successes of Biden's first 2 years. The agreement announced recently in the Senate would devote just over $350 million to the climate fight, putting us within striking distance of meeting the goals established by the Paris Climate Accords. Tom, we're not going to be underwater anytime soon. Okay. The idea that Aquaman is going to be applying for employment at the U.S. Postal Service to deliver mail because we're going to be underwater is nonsense. Okay. Whether it's the polar ice caps, whether it's other aspects of climate. Okay. We're not in trouble. Okay. So you, along with the rest of the climate hysterics, really make me laugh. Right. Because what's interesting is you're the same type of clown that will push for electric cars. Well, here's a news flash, Tommy. While you make your nice salary living in Montclair, working class Black and brown people can't afford electric cars because the MSRP, the manufacturer's suggested retail price, is around $50,000. And can working class Black and brown people finance that? Do all of them have really good credit to be eligible to be able to purchase an electric vehicle? Chances are that they're not. That's not being racist or stereotypical. Those are the facts. Okay? So, of course, and here's another thing too, electric cars consume more electricity than your average air conditioner. So yes, you, like the rest of the climate hysterics and all the other woke idiots, want to talk about climate change, right? It was global warming. And then when you realize that the planet wasn't warming, you had to change your narrative to something else, right? Like climate change. Now, who knows what it'll be in, I don't know, 10 years from now. I don't know, ecological evolution. I mean, this is the nonsense, folks, that we're subjected to by clowns like Tom Moran. Okay? Tommy, we're not going to be underwater anytime soon. Okay? We can keep drilling for oil because here's a news flash. Aside from filling up your tank in your car or heating your homes in the wintertime, petroleum produces a plethora of goods that we use on a daily basis. But again, if you did your homework, you would know that. So the fact that Dr. Uribe has to educate you constantly on this show is kind of demoralizing. I'm getting tired of it, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like it's exhausting having to give you an education. Okay, you're like an 80-year-old man. You should know these things. I'm like half your age, and I know them. Why don't you? So anyway, so here's another one too. The deal will also allow Medicare to negotiate prices, saving the government and American families huge sums of money. No, Tom, guess what? they're going to find a way to screw you anyway. You might save money on prescription drugs. Well, guess what? The government's going to find a way to make Medicare even more expensive for you. Okay. And again, you should care about this because you're approaching Medicare age if you're not there already. Right? Infrastructure bills, right? Yeah, we see Petey Buttigieg talking about, hey, don't worry about gas prices. Get yourself an electric car. Again, it's that myopic, short-sighted, nonsense that, we're subjected to when it comes to climate hysteria. That's what you're advancing here with these sort of articles, okay? There's nothing to brag about when it comes to Joe Biden, right? This guy had the nerve to stand before the American people and say that, oh, we're not experiencing inflation, when we all know that 2 consecutive quarters of non-economic growth is inflation, right? I'm not an economist, and I know this, right? Doesn't the president surround himself with, supposedly the best and brightest minds, right, when it comes to economics and everything else? But you needed the Senate and Democrats in both the House and Senate to pass the Inflation Reduction Act. But I thought we weren't living under inflation. So make a decision, right? Just like the clown that's the press secretary, right? Wait a minute, the president doesn't control gas prices, but then she'll come on the next day and say, well, this is what the president's going to be doing to reduce gas prices. Honey, make a decision. Either the president can control gas prices or policies can influence it, or it doesn't. But that's the problem, folks, that this administration is never held accountable. Not by the national media, and certainly not by the garbage media here in the state. Take your pick. The Star Ledger, Insider NJ, NorthJersey.com, NJ.com. Okay? This is the garbage journalism we're subjected to that never holds this administration accountable for anything. Okay? We could drill domestically, right? We could reduce our dependency on foreign oil. Okay, but no, we can't do that because we have to sort of push this Green New Deal nonsense. Folks, again, an electric car takes more to charge up than your average central air or window apparatus. So you're cutting your nose to spite your face. An electric car weighs more because the engine is heavier. You're going to have more wear and tear and maintenance on your tires. But they won't tell you because they want to get you brainwashed to the Green New Deal nonsense and all this climate hysteria. Tommy, you should know better. You're a grown-ass man in your 80s, already well above the eligibility for Medicare, and here you are, trying to push this nonsense. Again, folks, when we talk about the Star Ledger, it's not worth the paper it's printed on. Another interesting article by Tommy Boy, right? Talking about Amy DeGees. Yes, and we all know that Amy DeGees, the councilwoman at large in Jersey City, has been in the headlines since July the 19th. I'm sure that many people are looking forward to the council meeting this Wednesday in the council chambers in downtown Jersey City. But here's an interesting column about Tom Moran. Talks about the man could have died and she didn't even stop to check. Amy DeGees must go. I've talked about this before. I talked about it with Paul Mulshine from the Star Ledger. I talked about it last week with HuffPost publisher James De Los Santos. Okay, I have chosen not to pile on Amy DeGees. I have chosen to let the laws of the land prevail. Let her have her day in court, and we'll see what happens. But whether it's, hysterics like Uncle Dave, with NJ Spotlight News, well, I get it. He's having a perpetual erection because his New York Mets are finally relevant after, decades. I get it. You have a hard on because the Mets are doing well. Dave, take it easy. October's coming soon. You know what's coming, all right? I don't think I need to tell you because history will tell you, okay? But whether it's David Cruz, whether it's all these activists, right? You got these clowns like Hector Oseguera, who's so in love with the sound of his own voice, will go in front of any microphone to virtue signal, right? Or all these other activists piling on Amy DeGees. Listen, clearly a mistake was made. I think Amy will concede that whenever her day in court approaches. But what bothers me, though, is that no one seems to be holding the bicyclist accountable here. Okay? No offense, folks, but here's the truth. This entire ordeal would have been completely avoided had Mr. Black not taken a red light. Why hasn't Mr. Black been assigned and issued a summons? He should have. Why are we seeing that from local news apparatuses? Why are we seeing people talk about that on social media or columns like this garbage column from Tom Moran talking about Amy DeGees? Listen, folks, I get it. She's been piling on. I choose not to pile on. She's a friend of mine. Okay? I'm not going to pile on someone during their really, really bad moments. And now we're seeing everything being uncovered about Amy DeGees. I get it. Oprah requests are filed. People get them. People receive information. They do what they want with it. That's fine. I personally have chosen not to pile on because she's a friend of mine. And for all of you hypocrites out there that want to talk garbage and talk trash, you've never stood up for a friend of yours during a difficult time? You've never stood by a friend when maybe they've had a moment where maybe some bad judgment was displayed, or maybe where they're experiencing some adversity? You've never stood by a friend of yours? Really? You want me to go there? You want me to go there and point out your hypocrisy? Exactly. Folks, you need to have a little more self-awareness. Okay? And Tommy Boy is just yet another example of the journalists in New Jersey piling on. Is Tom Moran perfect? I remember seeing an article somewhere that he bumped into Hudson County Prosecutor Esther Suarez. Now, I have my opinion of Esther, notwithstanding what I think of Esther, but that story broke news everywhere. Where Tom Moran apparently, approached her at Liberty House in Jersey City, maybe some contact was made, and that blew up. Did the Star Ledger dump Tom Moran? Did people go and say, oh, Tom Moran must go? Because apparently that looked like a really egregious act by Tom. But no, Tom wants to be sanctimonious. Tom wants to be self-righteous, like everybody else on the left, because that's what they're really good at. They excel in being self-righteous. The left excels on being sanctimonious. You're all full of crap. I'll say it today. I'll keep saying it. So, Tom, again, look in your own closet and look in your own house before you throw stones. Again, as I said, Amy DeGeese is going to have her day in court. Now in Hudson County, obviously the case will be settled out of county. It'll be heard somewhere else. Let the laws of the land prevail. Whatever the sentencing judge issues, we'll see. And whatever punishment she faces, I'm sure Amy will approach it with dignity and decorum, because that's the Amy DeGeese that I know. That's the Amy DeGeese that I've come to know as a friend of mine for years now. Her father, the same thing. Let's stop piling on, folks. You should know better. Okay? We're not perfect. No one's perfect. I'm not perfect. But I'm also not going to be sanctimonious and self-righteous like Tom Moran and Jay Lassiter and David Cruz and all these other clowns in New Jersey media that seem to be doing the same. Tom, you should know better. You're a grown-ass man, probably like 80-something, 85, 86. I don't know, maybe approaching 90. I don't know. You should know better, bro. Stop throwing stones in a glass house, my man, because there's plenty to dig up on you, Tom. Don't do that. You're making it very easy for people like me to go after you. Don't give me a reason. Okay, you've been off my list for many weeks now, but guess what? You're back on it with garbage columns like this. But what else is new from Tom Moran? Again, as we all know, when it comes to the Star Ledger, we all know it's bad journalism. But speaking of bad journalism, of course, folks, how can we forget Insider NJ, right? Where Insider NJ, once again, it seems like they're almost at this like Cal Ripken, Lou Gehrig streak, like consecutive game streak of like games played. But in this case, it seems like Insider NJ is like a consecutive streak of like bad journalism every single week. I'm losing count here, right? And of course, what do? Well, of course, when we talk about bad journalism at Insider NJ, I mean, again, and there's a plethora of people to choose from. But of course, we have to rely on, Mr. Reliable. You know it. You know who it is, right? Of course. It's Bobby's World. Bobby's World. Bobby's World. Yes. Bobby Henley. Okay. It's funny when I used to call Jay Lasser a little bitch, which he still is. But now I get to call Bobby Henley a big bitch because that's what he's acting as. Right? Because, of course, when you expose bad journalism and socialists like Bob Henley, you know what happens when you do that? Of course, he blocks you on social media and on Twitter, just like he did on Facebook. So, again, folks, it's interesting where the resident little bitch now has company because now there's a big bitch in Bob Henley. And here's the latest garbage column from Bob Henley here, right? Talking about a Chris Christie speech that presaged the Trump junta. Now, I'm not going to read this entire nonsense because, again, if you want to go to sleep and you're suffering from insomnia, just take a Bob Henley column, be like this. You wake up, you're like, oh, damn. Oh, wow, okay. Oh, I'm still on the first paragraph. That's what columns from Bob Henley will do. I mean, they put me to sleep. Trust me, they'll put you to sleep as well. So if you're suffering from insomnia, folks, take it from Dr. Uribe. Print it up or read it on your smartphone. You'll be like just snoring within minutes because that's the only thing it's good for. But we talk about and he does a great job here with his whataboutisms about, oh, well, what about Trump doing this in 2016 and how Chris Christie enabled it? No, folks. And this is really funny. I love the way the line here. As we saw on January 6th, this particular strain of self-righteous republicanism, this guy talking about self-righteousness by anybody else is gold, which Christie's 2016 speech helped spawn. No, he didn't do anything. I'm not a fan of Chris Christie by any means, but his speech didn't do that. Is capable of seizing the U.S. Capitol and building gallows. Now, as the American justice system attempts to hold Trump accountable, Republican members of Congress are calling for defunding the FBI. Well, folks, when you have as corrupt an organization as the FBI, and we're clearly seeing it here, you expect me to believe, Bobby, and the rest of the idiots at Insider NJ, that if the 45th president had, I don't know, some really important classified documents, like let's say nuclear secrets, that the Joe Biden FBI under Attorney General Merrick Garland would have waited 18 months to go seize them? That they would have waited 18 months to have a judge, who, by the way, is a judge that's linked to Jeffrey Epstein, who represented Jeffrey Epstein, right? If you do a little homework on him, but that's another story. You think that the FBI and the Department of Justice is going to wait 18 months if a former president has nuclear secrets in boxes in his home in Florida? You expect me to believe that? You expect any rational, commonsensical, cognitively functional person to believe that? Of course not. It's a witch hunt, just like everything else we've seen in the last few years, right? Russia, hoax, the Mueller report, BS, taxpayer dollars wasted in the millions, right? Collusion, impeach this, impeach that. What have we learned? All of these fabricated and nonsensical investigations. And now, because the left has cried wolf for so many years, I'm supposed to take you seriously now? Give me a break, Bob. You know what? Again, I don't mind calling you a big bitch because that's what you act like. Have a little integrity. Again, the invitation's there. Come on this show. Have a conversation with me and answer the tough questions. See, this is the problem with guys like Bobby Henley, who are like in their mid to late 80s. You don't want to be held accountable for anything, okay? You want to be home, sucking down another hot dog or having another, smoothie without any accountability. That's what you've become, Bobby Henley. You've become garbage journalism, personified. But of course, when we talk about garbage journalism, you have to be in it because someone has to publish your columns, right? They just don't go sporadically out there. They do in some websites, some left-leaning, socialist, communist websites that you like to publish on. But of course, when we talk about propagandists, we talk about who enables you, Bobby. Of course, it's Maxie Pizarro, the resident enabler at Insider NJ. And I've made fun of Max enough on this show. I don't need to remind everybody about the garbage journalism that Max, perpetuates on a consistent basis, right? But enabling garbage stuff like this from Bobby Henley is egregious. It really, really is. And you should know better, Max. You should have a sit down with Bob and say, hey, Bob, have a little self-awareness here. Anyone that does their homework on you is going to know that you're full of crap. But again, that takes self-awareness. And that's something, and again, that takes, wait for it, four syllables, integrity. Yes, that pesky four-little word that Max Pizarro doesn't seem to practice. And neither does Bobby Henley, and neither does anybody else at Insider NJ. Take your pick. Sleepy Al, Alan Steinberg, Little Bitch Jay Lasseter. Take your pick. Okay? The only guy you can really respect at Insider NJ is Fred Snowflake. He's a friend of mine. He's a guy who I can actually respect. A guy whose column I can read and be like, wow, this is thought-provoking journalism by Fred Snowflake. Not the usual, that I'm reading when I print up something from Insider NJ. Max, you need to do better. And what's even worse, again, is who enables you, too. And again, that's Pete Onelia, another guy who's more concerned with collecting revenue dollars and advertising than having some integrity. The Hawthorne Democratic chairman in the city of Hawthorne is also the general manager of a news site. How that's not a conflict of interest and how you expect me to take you seriously, Pete, is beyond me. Okay? But keep running far left Board of Education candidates. Keep, bitching and moaning on social media that, it's not bad enough that we celebrate Pride Month in June, right? That Hawthorne now does it on a 1 month basis, but now guess what? We need to have it 12 months out of the year. Get out of here with that nonsense. We don't need it 12 months out of the year. 1 month is enough, but not according to Pete Onelia and his social media. But also, too, the enabling of bad journalism, like Maxie Pizarro, and especially in this case, Bobby Henley. Bobby, I'll tell you, have some integrity. Have a set of what. I don't know if your wife took them. I don't know if they got repossessed by a mistress. I don't know where they are. but have a set. Come on this show. All right, the invitation's there. I'll give you an hour uninterrupted, commercial free. Come debate me. Come and tell me where I'm wrong in what I've dissected about your garbage journalism. But folks, this isn't a prediction. It's a spoiler. Okay? He won't do it. Just like Jay Lassiter won't, just like nobody else at Insider NJ will. I'm sorry, Fred Snowflake will. See, Fred Snowflake has integrity. I respect the guy. We may not see eye to eye politically. We may not see eye to eye on sports teams, but he's the guy I can respect at Insider NJ. So I love you, Fred. You're a good guy. The rest of your colleagues at Insider NJ, straight up garbage. Okay? No different than what I put on the sidewalk every Tuesday and Friday in the municipality that I live in. Folks, we need to do better at Insider NJ, but it seems like the Graham family isn't interested. They're getting advertising dollars. They're happy perpetuating this nonsense narrative that you see from Insider NJ, from Pino Nelia, Max Bizzarro, Bobby Boy, Bobby Hennelly, okay, along with Jay Lassiter, along with Ali Steinberg. It's like the Lollipop Guild. It's like they're grown-ass men in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, respectively, that don't understand what good journalism is. I don't know, guys. It seems like money's pretty much corrupted you guys. It's a pretty much shame. I don't know. I hope I never get there where, I lose my integrity, because I never do. I practice it every single week on this show. You might want to learn something from Fernando Uribe, because God knows you're not learning anything else when it comes to journalism. Learn at least that when it comes to integrity. As we always know, folks, when it comes to bad journalism, Insider NJ leads the pack. And also, of course, the Star-Ledger does too here this week. And that's our show for tonight. Once again, I want to thank our great guest, Anthony Colandro, the owner of Gun for Hire in Woodland Park, and also an NRA board member, for a very insightful conversation about the Second Amendment, about responsible gun ownership, about New Jersey politics, even some national politics as well. That and much more, folks. We covered it tonight. If you're just tuning in live, the episode will be available in its entirety right after we go off the air. It'll be available on the Jersey First YouTube page and also on the Jersey First Facebook page as well, and also by going to www.jerseyfirst.org. That's Jersey, the number one, st.org. Also check out jerseyfirst.org/Real Talk with Fernando Uribe. All my episodes are there. Great traffic again. I owe it all to you, my wonderful and beautiful and intelligent audience at home that tunes in every week. Not the dozens that view every week, not the hundreds, but the thousands that view this show every week. All organic traffic, okay? Nothing boosted, right? No paid ads, all organic traffic from yours truly. Once again, folks, tune in every single Monday night live at 6 p.m. Eastern time for the best analysis and commentary about New Jersey politics. It's always right here on Jersey First TV. Again, you can always watch it online. We got some great news coming up this fall about Jersey First and everything that we're doing to advance this show. You definitely want to stay tuned for that. Make sure you follow Jersey First on Instagram and Twitter. Check out my own Instagram and Twitter at The Fernando Zone. Make sure you like Jersey First on Facebook. Of course, check out my own Facebook as well. I'm that handsome guy wearing a great Real Madrid, right? The winners of the Champions League and La Liga, of course. That you can't miss me, folks. It's that handsome guy wearing the nice jersey on Facebook. Make sure you like it. Of course, drop a follow, drop a friend request whenever you can. And of course, sharing is caring. Always, we appreciate it here at Jersey First TV. And always remember, ladies and gentlemen, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, you can always rely on Real Talk with Jersey First TV. I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, top 100 Latino via the Latino Spirit online magazine, the Garden State's most beloved and factually accurate political commentator, and the sworn enemy of all the social justice clowns, climate hysterics, the pronoun patrol, the alphabet army, all of the, woke fools. Yes, it's me, Fernando Uribe, saying so long, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. And always remember, top guy out.